Look around you for a second. Your home, your office, wherever you are right now. You're surrounded by everyday objects, things you use without thinking. A box of tissues, a bowl of cereal, maybe a pair of heels sitting by the door, a treadmill gathering dust in the corner. Normal things, mundane things, things that have been part of daily life for so long we forget they even have a history. But here's the thing. A lot of those objects, they have dark origins, disturbing origins, origins that would make you look at them very differently if you knew the truth. That innocent box of Kleenex on your desk started as a gas mask filter in World War I. Those cornflakes you had for breakfast, created by a man obsessed with stopping masturbation through bland food. The treadmill at the gym, Victorian prison torture device. Today, we're uncovering the shocking, often disturbing histories of 11 everyday objects. Things you've used, things you own, things that seem perfectly innocent until you learn where they actually came from. Some of these stories are strange. Some are uncomfortable. All of them are true, and all of them will change the way you see the ordinary things around you. Let's dive in.
Every morning, millions of people pour themselves a bowl of cornflakes. Kellogg's Cornflakes, been around forever. Classic breakfast cereal. Simple, bland, harmless. Except they weren't created to be harmless. They were created to be medicinal, specifically to stop people from masturbating. This was the 1890s. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg ran a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, very religious, very strict, and absolutely obsessed with what he called sexual purity. Kellogg believed that masturbation caused basically every health problem imaginable. Epilepsy, insanity, cancer, heart disease, acne, all of it. He was convinced that if people just stopped touching themselves, they'd live longer, healthier lives. And one of his solutions? Bland food. He genuinely believed that spicy, flavorful food aroused sexual desire, so he created the blandest breakfast he could think of. Cornflakes. Just flattened corn. No sugar, no flavor, nothing. The idea was that if you ate these tasteless flakes every morning, you'd be too uninspired to engage in what he called self-pollution. He also recommended other treatments. Carbolic acid on the clitoris for women, circumcision without anesthetic for boys, yogurt enemas. The man was extreme. But the cornflakes stuck. His brother, Will Keith Kellogg, saw the commercial potential, added sugar, made them actually taste like something, started mass-producing them. John Harvey was furious. He sued his brother, said adding sugar defeated the entire purpose, lost the lawsuit. And now here we are, over a century later, eating cereal that was originally designed to suppress sexual urges. We've just forgotten that part. Next time you pour yourself a bowl of cornflakes, remember, you're eating anti-masturbation medicine. It just doesn't work anymore because we added sugar.
Dr. John Harvey Kellogg genuinely believed bland food would prevent sexual thoughts. He was wrong, obviously. But his breakfast cereal empire was built on that belief. Cornflakes are now one of the most popular cereals in the world, and nobody thinks about masturbation when they eat them. So, mission failed successfully, I guess. Moving on.
You know those treadmills at the gym, the ones everyone dreads using, the ones that feel like punishment when you're trying to get fit? Well, they were punishment, literally. That's what they were designed for. 1823, England, an engineer named Sir William Cubitt invented the treadmill. Not for exercise, for prisons. It was called the tread wheel or everlasting staircase. Prisoners were forced to climb it for hours, sometimes 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. The wheel had steps, 24 steps in a circle. Prisoners would step on them, their weight would turn the wheel. They'd keep stepping, keep climbing, never getting anywhere. Just endless climbing. And it wasn't just pointless, it was productive. The wheels were connected to mills, grinding corn, pumping water, crushing grain. The prisoners' labor powered the machines. But mostly, it was about punishment, making prisoners suffer, breaking their will. Some prisons made them do it in silence, No talking, no rest, just climb for hours. The conditions were brutal: poor ventilation, extreme heat, exhaustion. Injuries were common: falls, broken bones, heart attacks. Some prisoners died on the treadmills. By the mid-1800s, thousands of prisoners across Britain were on these machines. It was considered humane punishment compared to flogging or execution. Productive suffering, they called it. The practice was eventually banned in 1902, deemed too cruel, too dangerous, inhumane. And then, decades later, in the 1960s, an American doctor named Dr. Robert Bruce reinvented the treadmill for cardiac stress testing, then for fitness. Now we pay money to use them. We call it exercise, self-improvement. We voluntarily do what Victorian prisoners were forced to do as punishment. The machines are more comfortable now. Climate-controlled gyms, water bottles, music, but the basic principle is the same. Walk endlessly, go nowhere, suffer for self-improvement. Victorian prisoners would find it hilarious or horrifying that we do this by choice.
We literally took a torture device and turned it into a fitness trend, rebranded suffering as wellness. The treadmill killed people in Victorian prisons. Now we voluntarily climb on them before work. Progress, I guess. Let's continue.
High heels, associated with femininity, elegance, fashion, worn almost exclusively by women in modern Western culture. But they weren't always for women. They weren't even created for fashion. They were created for war, specifically Persian cavalry in the 10th century. Persian soldiers on horseback needed a way to stabilize themselves while shooting arrows. The heel allowed them to stand in the stirrups, secure footing, better aim, more control. Heels were practical, military, masculine, a symbol of strength and horsemanship. Then in the early 1600s, Persian diplomats traveled to Europe. European aristocrats saw the heels, loved them, started wearing them themselves, not for horseback riding, for status, to appear taller, more imposing, more aristocratic. King Louis XIV of France was particularly fond of them. He was short, 5'4". He wore heels everywhere, red-heeled shoes, sometimes 4 or 5 inches tall. It made him taller, more commanding, more regal. He even made red heels exclusive to his court. Only the nobility could wear them. It became a symbol of privilege, power, access to the king. Men wore heels, women wore heels, everyone wore heels. It wasn't gendered, it was class-based. But then, the Enlightenment happened. Late 1700s, rationality, practicality, function over form. Men's fashion became simpler, more practical. Heels were deemed frivolous, impractical, feminine. Women kept wearing them, and gradually, heels became exclusively associated with women. By the 1800s, a man wearing heels would be mocked, ridiculed. Now, heels are so tied to femininity that men wearing them is seen as subversive, transgressive. Even though men invented them, wore them for centuries, made them a symbol of power. And the irony? Modern high heels are impractical, painful, difficult to walk in. They restrict movement, cause injury, everything the original Persian cavalry heels were designed to prevent. We took a functional military tool and turned it into an ornament, a symbol of beauty that sacrifices comfort, stability, practicality. Persian soldiers would be baffled. European kings would be confused. But fashion doesn't care about history. It just moves forward and forgets where it came from.
High heels went from Persian cavalry to European aristocracy to women's fashion, from practical to powerful to painful. The original purpose, stability, function, strength, was completely lost. Now they're symbols of femininity, and most people have no idea men wore them first. History's funny like that. We forget the origins and just accept what's in front of us. Next story.
Play-Doh, that colorful modeling clay every kid plays with. Smells like childhood. Comes in little cans. Been around forever. It wasn't created as a toy. It was created to clean wallpaper. This was the 1930s, Cincinnati, Ohio. Most homes were heated with coal furnaces. Coal produces soot, lots of soot. It sticks to everything, especially wallpaper. Wallpaper back then was delicate. You couldn't wash it. Soap and water would ruin it. So people needed a way to clean soot off wallpaper without damaging it. A man named Noah McVicker worked for his family's soap company. They created a putty-like substance, soft, pliable, slightly sticky. You'd roll it across the wallpaper, the soot would stick to it, then you'd throw it away. It worked. The company sold it to grocery stores, wallpaper cleaner for housewives dealing with coal soot. But then, after World War II, homes switched to natural gas and electric heating. No more coal, no more soot, no more need for wallpaper cleaner. The company was dying. Noah's nephew, Joe McVicker, took over, desperately trying to find a new use for the product. Then Joe's sister-in-law, a nursery school teacher, told him something interesting. She'd been using the wallpaper cleaner in her classroom. The kids loved it. They were molding it, shaping it, playing with it. Joe realized if they removed the detergent, added colors, rebranded it, they could sell it as a children's toy. 1956, they renamed it Play-Doh, sold it to schools and toy stores. It was an instant hit. Kids had no idea they were playing with wallpaper cleaner. Parents didn't care. It was safe, non-toxic, creative, fun. Now, Play-Doh is one of the most iconic toys in the world. Hasbro owns it. Millions of cans sold every year. Over 3 billion cans since it was invented. And it all started as a way to clean coal soot off wallpaper. The company was about to go bankrupt. One suggestion from a nursery school teacher saved it. Sometimes the best inventions aren't planned. They're just repurposed accidents.
Play-Doh's one of the happier stories on this list. Went from dying wallpaper cleaner to beloved children's toy. No dark history, just clever reinvention. Though it is a little funny that generations of kids have been playing with what's essentially cleaning putty. But hey, if it works, it works. Another one.
Kleenex. Little tissue you pull from a box when you've got a cold. Blow your nose, throw it away. Simple. Every day. Unremarkable. But Kleenex started as something much darker. Gas mask filters. World War I. 1914. War breaks out. Chemical weapons are being used. Chlorine gas, mustard gas, phosgene. Soldiers needed protection. Gas masks became essential. But early gas masks were crude, heavy, ineffective. The filters weren't good enough. Soldiers were still getting poisoned. Kimberly-Clark, an American paper company, developed a new material, cellulose-cotton. Thin sheets of processed wood pulp, highly absorbent, could filter gases and particles effectively. They started producing it for gas mask filters, millions of sheets, sent to the front lines. It saved lives. Soldiers could breathe through the masks without inhaling poison gas. Then the war ended. 1918. Kimberly-Clark had factories full of cellulose-cotton. No more military contracts, no more demand for gas mask filters. They needed a new market, fast, or the company would collapse. Someone suggested cosmetics. Women were using cloth towels to remove cold cream and makeup. Expensive towels had to be washed, reused. Kimberly-Clark figured they could sell disposable tissues instead. 1924. They launched Kleenex, marketed as a disposable cold cream remover for women. Cosmetic industry. It didn't sell well. Women didn't want to pay for disposable tissues when reusable towels worked fine. Then Kimberly-Clark noticed something. People were writing letters saying they were using Kleenex to blow their noses, not for makeup removal, for colds, allergies, general hygiene. So the company pivoted, rebranded Kleenex as facial tissues for colds and allergies, disposable handkerchiefs. Don't carry a cold in your pocket. Sales exploded. By the 1930s, Kleenex was everywhere. Homes, offices, schools, the standard for disposable tissues. And nobody remembered it started as gas mask filters. That the same material that protected soldiers from mustard gas was now being used to blow noses. From battlefield survival tool to household convenience. From life or death necessity to everyday mundane object. War drives innovation, then peace repurposes it. And we forget the origins entirely.
Kleenex literally went from protecting soldiers from chemical weapons to helping you with a runny nose. The technology that saved lives in the trenches became so common we don't even think about it anymore. That's how innovation works. Necessity creates it. Commerce spreads it. Time erases the memory of why it existed in the first place. Keep going.
Bubble wrap. Everyone loves popping it. Satisfying, addictive, stress relief, and it's great for protecting fragile stuff when you're shipping things. But it wasn't invented for packaging. It was invented as wallpaper, textured three-dimensional wallpaper. 1957, two engineers in New Jersey, Alfred Fielding and Mark Javance. They were trying to create textured wallpaper, something modern, trendy, three-dimensional. They sealed two shower curtains together, trapped air bubbles between them, created this bumpy, bubbly texture. Thought it looked cool? Futuristic. They tried to sell it. Nobody wanted it. Turns out people don't want bumpy wallpaper. It's weird, hard to clean, impractical. It flopped. So they pivoted, tried to sell it as greenhouse insulation. The air bubbles would trap heat, keep plants warm. That didn't work either. Greenhouses needed something more durable. Bubble wrap tore too easily. Another failure. They were about to give up. Then IBM started shipping computers. 1960. Early computers were massive, fragile, expensive, needed serious protection during transport. Someone at IBM tried using bubble wrap. It worked. The air bubbles cushioned the equipment, protected it from impacts. Lightweight, effective, perfect. Fielding and Javance realized they'd finally found a market. Not wallpaper, not insulation, packaging material. They founded Sealed Air Corporation, started mass-producing bubble wrap specifically for shipping. It took off. By the 70s, it was everywhere. Now it's the standard for protecting fragile items. And it's weirdly beloved. People pop it for fun. There are bubble wrap appreciation days, stress relief toys that simulate popping bubbles. All because two guys failed at making wallpaper, failed at greenhouse insulation, and accidentally created one of the most useful packaging materials in history. Sometimes the best ideas come from trying something completely different and failing until you stumble onto what actually works.
Bubble wrap was a failure twice before it became a success. Wallpaper didn't work, insulation didn't work, packaging, perfect. And now we associate it with the satisfying pop more than its actual purpose. Failure's just success waiting for the right application. Moving on.
Listerine, that mouthwash that burns your mouth. Been around forever. Kills germs, freshens breath, standard bathroom cabinet item. But it wasn't created for your mouth. It was created for surgery as a surgical antiseptic. 1879, Dr. Joseph Lawrence in St. Louis developed a formula, alcohol-based antiseptic properties. Named it after Joseph Lister, the pioneer of antiseptic surgery. It was used to disinfect surgical instruments, clean wounds, sterilize operating rooms, even treat gonorrhea. It was medicinal, clinical, serious stuff. And it sold, but not great, limited market, only hospitals and doctors. Then, in the 1920s, the company decided to expand. They needed a new market, a bigger market, something everyone would buy, regularly. So they created one. They invented a medical condition that didn't exist, halitosis. Bad breath existed, obviously, but halitosis made it sound like a disease, a medical problem, something that needed treatment. The marketing was genius and brutal. Ads showed people being socially rejected because of bad breath. Often a bridesmaid, never a bride. He never knew why he didn't get the job. They convinced people that bad breath was ruining their lives, and Listerine was the cure, the medical solution to a medical problem. Sales exploded. By the 1930s, Listerine was a household name. Everyone was using it, twice a day, sometimes more. The kicker, Listerine doesn't really fix bad breath long-term. It masks it temporarily. The alcohol dries out your mouth, which actually makes bad breath worse later. But it doesn't matter. The company created a need, convinced everyone they had a problem, sold them the solution. Brilliant marketing, questionable ethics. And it all started as a surgical disinfectant. They literally took something meant to sterilize wounds and convinced people to gargle with it. Next time you use Listerine, remember, you're rinsing your mouth with what surgeons use to clean up after amputations. And you're doing it because an ad campaign in the 20s convinced you that you have a disease called halitosis.
Listerine invented a disease to sell a product. Classic capitalism. They took a surgical antiseptic and rebranded it as the cure for social embarrassment. It worked. People bought it. Still do. Marketing's more powerful than medicine sometimes. Let's continue.
Chainsaws. Big, loud, powerful, used for cutting down trees, logging, forestry, horror movies. They weren't invented for trees. They were invented for childbirth, specifically cutting through pelvic bone during difficult labor. I'm not joking. This is real. Late 1700s, Scotland, two doctors, John Aitken and James Jeffrey. They were dealing with obstructed labor when a baby couldn't pass through the birth canal, usually because the pelvis was too narrow. The solution back then was a procedure called symphysiotomy, cutting through the cartilage of the pelvis to widen the birth canal. It was done with a small knife, by hand, while the woman was awake, often without anesthetic. It was slow, agonizing, dangerous, high risk of infection, massive blood loss. Many women died. Aitken and Jeffrey thought there has to be a better way, faster, more precise, less traumatic. So they invented a chainsaw, a small hand-cranked chainsaw with tiny teeth, designed to cut through pelvic bone quickly and efficiently. It worked, sort of. It was faster than a knife, but it was still horrific, a chainsaw used on a woman's pelvis during childbirth. The tool was used for decades, mostly in cases where the baby was dead and needed to be removed, or when the mother's life was at immediate risk. Then cesarean sections became safer, more common. By the mid-1800s, symphysiotomy was largely abandoned. The chainsaw wasn't needed anymore. But someone noticed, this chain and tooth mechanism, really good at cutting through hard material quickly. What if we made it bigger, used it for trees? 1830, a German orthopedist named Bernhard Hein created a larger version, called it an osteotome, used it to cut bone during amputations. Then, in the early 1900s, loggers adapted the design, made it even bigger, added motors, used it for cutting timber. And that's how chainsaws went from childbirth tool to logging equipment, from operating rooms to forests, from cutting bone to cutting wood. So yeah, next time you see someone using a chainsaw to cut down a tree, just remember, it started as a tool to cut through a woman's pelvis during labor. You're welcome for that nightmare.
Chainsaws for childbirth. That's genuinely horrifying. Medical history is full of nightmare fuel. This is definitely up there. At least cesarean sections exist now, and chainsaws stand forests where they belong. Moving on before we dwell on that image too long.
Coca-Cola, the most recognizable brand in the world. Refreshing drink, classic American soda. Been around since 1886. It was invented as medicine, specifically a cure for morphine addiction. This was Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. John Stith Pemberton, Confederate veteran. He'd been wounded in the Civil War, became addicted to morphine for pain management, like thousands of other veterans. Morphine addiction was epidemic after the war. Soldiers came home hooked, needed something to help them quit. Pemberton wanted to create a cure, so he developed a tonic, a syrup made with coca leaves and cola nuts. Coca leaves contained cocaine, cola nuts contained caffeine. He mixed them with sugar and other flavors, called it Pemberton's French wine coca. The idea was simple: replace morphine with cocaine. Wean people off one drug by giving them another. It was common medical practice at the time. Cocaine wasn't illegal. It was considered therapeutic. But then, Atlanta went dry. Prohibition came to the city. 1886, no more alcohol allowed. Pemberton's wine coca couldn't be sold anymore. So, he reformulated it, removed the alcohol, added carbonated water, created a non-alcoholic version, renamed it Coca-Cola. He sold it at soda fountains, marketed it as a brain tonic, a cure for headaches, anxiety, and morphine addiction. 5 cents a glass. And people loved it. Not because it cured morphine addiction, it didn't, but because it had cocaine in it. And cocaine makes you feel good, energetic, alert, happy. For decades, Coca-Cola contained cocaine. Not a lot, but enough. People drank it for the kick, the buzz, the energy boost. Then in 1903, public opinion shifted. Cocaine was being recognized as dangerous, addictive, harmful. Coca-Cola quietly removed it from the formula, switched to coca leaf extract without the cocaine alkaloid. But the name stayed, Coca-Cola, named after the coca leaf, the plant that produces cocaine. So, Coca-Cola, invented as a morphine addiction cure,
contained cocaine for decades, became the most famous soft drink in the world, and nobody thinks about the drug history anymore. Just another example of a product outliving its origins. We forget where things came from, just enjoy what they are now. But, yeah, your grandparents' were drinking cocaine-laced soda at the local drugstore. And it was perfectly legal.
Coca-Cola started as a drug to treat drug addiction and contained a different drug for almost 20 years. The original recipe literally had cocaine. Not a metaphor, actual cocaine. And now it's just sugar, caffeine, and flavoring. Much less exciting, but probably better for you. Another one.
Graham crackers. Sweet, crunchy, classic snack. Goes great with chocolate and marshmallows for s'mores. Wholesome, innocent. Except they were invented by a man obsessed with stalking masturbation. Reverend Sylvester Graham, early 1800s, Presbyterian minister, health reformer, and absolutely convinced that diet could control sexual urges. Graham believed that rich, flavorful food aroused carnal desires. Meat, spices, alcohol, sweets, all of it stimulated what he called animal passions, which led to masturbation, which led to physical and moral ruin. Graham's solution was vegetarianism, bland food, whole grains, no spices, no flavor, nothing exciting, just boring, plain, unseasoned food. He created a cracker made from coarsely ground whole wheat flour, no white flour, no sugar, no additives, just wheat, dry, bland, unappetizing. These were graham crackers, original recipe. They tasted like cardboard. That was the point. If food was boring, people wouldn't get aroused. If they weren't aroused, they wouldn't masturbate. Simple. Graham preached this diet at revival meetings, wrote books, gave lectures. Thousands of people followed his advice. The Graham diet became a movement. He also recommended cold baths, loose clothing, avoiding feather mattresses because they were too stimulating, sleeping on hard surfaces, chastity, celibacy. The man was intense. Then he died, 1851 at age 57, probably from malnutrition and stress. Ironic, given he claimed his diet would make you live longer. But the crackers survived. Food manufacturers took the recipe, added sugar, made them actually taste good, turned them into a commercial product. Now graham crackers are sweet, delicious, used in desserts. The exact opposite of what Reverend Graham intended. He wanted bland crackers to suppress sexual desire. We turned them into s'mores, added chocolate and marshmallows, made them indulgent. Reverend Graham would be horrified, or maybe impressed that his name lives on, even if his mission completely failed.
Graham crackers, cornflakes. Two different men, same obsession. Both created bland food to stop masturbation. Neither worked. But both became massive commercial successes once someone added sugar and flavor. There's a lesson in there somewhere. Probably about how repression doesn't work, and people like food that tastes good. Last story.
Heroin, one of the most dangerous, addictive drugs in the world, destroys lives, kills thousands every year. Schedule I, controlled substance, illegal almost everywhere. It was invented by Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, and marketed as cough medicine for children. 1897, Bayer Laboratories in Germany. Chemists named Felix Hoffmann synthesized diacetylmorphine, a derivative of morphine. It was stronger, more effective, faster acting. They tested it, found that it was excellent at suppressing coughs, treating respiratory illnesses, tuberculosis, pneumonia, bronchitis. They named it heroin, from heroisch, the German word for heroic, because it made patients feel heroic, strong, powerful, euphoric. Bayer started marketing it aggressively, 1898. They sold it in over 20 countries as a cough suppressant, a pain reliever, and a treatment for morphine addiction. Yes, they marketed heroin as a cure for morphine addiction. Replace one addictive drug with another. What could go wrong? They specifically marketed it for children. Heroin, the sedative for coughs. Ads showed mothers giving it to their kids for colds, for coughs, for fussiness. It was sold over the counter. No prescription needed. You could buy it at the pharmacy, in stores, right next to aspirin, which, by the way, Bayer also invented. Same year, same chemist. Aspirin and heroin, 1897. Felix Hoffman had a productive year. For over a decade, heroin was everywhere. Doctors prescribed it. Parents gave it to their children. It was considered safe, effective, a miracle drug. Then people started noticing problems. Patients were becoming dependent. They needed more, higher doses. They couldn't stop taking it. Withdrawal was severe, violent, dangerous. By 1910, hospitals were seeing heroin addiction cases, lots of them. People who started taking it for a cough and couldn't quit. Children who'd been given it to by their parents were now addicted. The medical community started calling it out. Heroin wasn't safe. It was incredibly addictive. More addictive than morphine, more dangerous. Bayer quietly stopped producing it. 1913, stopped marketing it, stopped selling it, tried to pretend it never happened. By 1924, heroin was illegal in the United States, banned completely. Too dangerous, too addictive. No medical use that justified the risk. And now it's one of the deadliest drugs in the world. Black market, street drug, destroys lives, kills people every single day. But for 15 years, you could buy it at the corner pharmacy, give it to your kids for a cough. Bayer sold it as a safe, effective medicine. They called it heroic. It was anything but.
Heroin, marketed to children by one of the most trusted pharmaceutical companies in the world. They didn't know how addictive it was at first, but once they did, they kept selling it for years. That's the darkest one on this list, hands down. A company created one of the most destructive drugs in history, called it medicine, marketed it to kids, and we still use aspirin. Same company, same chemist, same year. One saved lives, the other destroyed them. Let me wrap this up. So there you have it, 11 everyday objects with shocking, often disturbing histories. Cornflakes and graham crackers, both created to stop masturbation. Treadmills, Victorian prison torture. High heels, Persian cavalry gear. Play-Doh, wallpaper cleaner. Kleenex, gas mask filters. Bubble wrap, failed textured wallpaper. Listerine, surgical antiseptic. Chainsaws, childbirth tools. Coca-Cola, morphine addiction cure with cocaine. And heroin, cough medicine for children. These things are everywhere, in our homes, in our stores, part of daily life. And most people have no idea where they came from, what they were originally designed for, why they exist at all. Some of these stories are just weird. Play-Doh and bubble wrap, accidental successes, failures that became something better. Others are uncomfortable. Treadmills as torture, chainsaws for childbirth, medical tools repurposed for convenience. And some are genuinely disturbing. Heroin marketed to children, cocaine and Coca-Cola, health products created from obsessions with controlling sexuality. But that's history. It's messy, uncomfortable, full of things we'd rather not think about. Products we use every day were born from war, addiction, moral panic, failure, and sometimes just really bad ideas that somehow worked. We sanitize our past, forget the uncomfortable parts, focus on the convenience, the comfort, the familiarity, and we lose the context. These objects aren't good or bad. They just are. But knowing where they came from, that changes how you see them, at least a little. So next time you grab a tissue, pour a bowl of cereal, pop some bubble wrap. Take a second. Remember the history, the weird, dark, surprising journey that object took to get to your home. Hit like if any of these shocked you. Subscribe for more stories that make you question the ordinary. And drop a comment. What everyday object do you want the history of? We might cover it next time. Thanks for watching. Look closer at the everyday. There's always more to the story than you think. See you next time.